H? Did Tennessee waste their time in the SEC tournament? Caleb?
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. ThanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Tennessee makes it to the final of the SEC tournament. What the H brought to you by Double D Piping. And my question for you is, Caleb, did they waste their time, effort, and energy? Now, they were definitely going to win the first round game. As you pointed out, Texas was in a double overtime game the day before. But when they really put it all on the line, they played a Final Four type of game against Auburn and former Tennessee coach Bruce Pearl. And at that point, whether it was about pride or it was about they really wanted that SEC conference tournament trophy, whatever the reason was, that's when you pushed all your chips in the middle of the table, isn't it? Whether you should have or that's when you did it.
Yeah, it is. And here, I wrote this column. I want to point this out. I wrote this column before Tennessee's loss to Florida, before the two tipped off on Sunday. I wrote Tennessee wasted time. And here's why. I'll give you the overall reason. And it's actually not my philosophy. It has nothing to do with my philosophy on the SEC tournament. Well, no, I'll start with my philosophy. My philosophy on the SEC tournament is that if you're a lock to get in, I just don't feel it's worth the fight to play 3 games in 3 days, waste all that energy just to get a higher seed by maybe 1. Tennessee used all that energy, didn't win it, only to see them get the best draw possible in the NCAA tournament, a draw they would have gotten if they lost on Saturday. So, I mean, and by the way, they didn't just waste their energy Saturday. They used a bunch of energy trying to come back in the game Sunday against Florida.
Yeah. Jimmy says Tennessee would still be a 2 seed if we beat Florida yesterday after the Ole Miss loss. Yeah, you're right. And at one point, was it Joe Lunardi? I believe, was it during the Auburn game? It was during the Auburn game that Tennessee was going to be a 2 seed no matter what. And I think you wrote that, or was it during the Florida game?
This gets to my point. Yeah, so Saturday night, after Tennessee beat Auburn, the SEC regular season champs, the number 3 ranked team in the country, Tennessee's number 6 in one pool, number 8 in another, number 5 in the net. Joe Lunardi comes out and says, if Tennessee, even if they beat Florida on Sunday, Florida's locked into the 1 seed, Tennessee's locked into the 2 seed. Now, Dave, think about that for a minute. Think about that. Let me just point this out. What Joe Lunardi is saying is this. Tennessee would have won the rubber match against Florida, meaning they would have won the overall series after the 2 split during the regular season, right?
Yes.
They would be the SEC tournament champions. They would have a higher net ranking. But Florida, by virtue of having a 1 game better overall record, which is kind of a throwout, in college basketball, you're not what your record says, would get the nod as the 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Which makes it very clear what I've insisted and you believe me on and you agree with me on from the start. The selection committee, they do their brackets before the tournament start. And they only alter them if a bubble team gets in and gets an automatic bid and they have to put them in now. They set the entire thing before the weekend because they don't want to mess up their weekend and waste time watching these conference tournament games. Okay. So because of that, I say, yes, they wasted energy. And for their sake, I hope they're not gassed for this weekend.
Okay. That's crazy. And I'm going to tell you why it's crazy. And there are a couple of different reasons. One, I pointed out earlier, these are 20, 21-year-old kids. I mean, I used to play basketball a lot at that age. When I was in college, I would play at Brickey High School, for those that know North Knoxville, or Brickey Middle School, or elementary school. Anyway, the gym was open, so we played. And I was never sore the next day. I got up and walked to class. It wasn't a big deal. Now, if I did it, I would be in bed for the better part of 3 days. But Caleb, I think you're overestimating the physical exertion that it takes a 20 to 21-year-old man to play a game of basketball. I don't think it's all that difficult. Our poll question is up on the page. Did Vols waste time in advancing an SEC tournament? Yes doesn't mean anything. No, iron sharpens iron. We'll discuss. I'll let Caleb defend himself a little bit because he's way off base. What the H brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in.
Caleb, iron sharpens iron. Tennessee just went against 2 number 1 seeds and split with them. And I fought hard against Florida, fought hard throughout the SEC tournament. Iron sharpens iron. I'm telling you, by going out there and competing, as opposed to, I covered a lot of those Jerry Green teams that made early SEC tournament exits. As opposed to sitting around all weekend, you would rather play basketball than not. Now, your argument is a bit stronger because they're playing a Thursday game instead of a Friday game. But if it were a Friday game, I would 158% disagree with you. Now I'm just at 112.
Whatever. Iron does not sharpen iron for this team. Here's when iron sharpens iron. When you're a shooting team, because you need to stay in rhythm. Those Jerry Green teams, Dave, you remember, no matter how good they were, wasn't 90% of what they did was jack up threes and not play defense, right?
If shots weren't falling, it wasn't working.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they did.
It wasn't.
That's when you would do your Jerry Green voice of, well, shots aren't falling. I don't know what to do.
Shots aren't falling. Ron keeps taking it at the top of the key.
Exactly. This Tennessee team plays grinded out basketball. They wear you down. That's not a style that you like lose with the week off. It's a style that helps you get fresh. More importantly, because of the way they play this game, they get, I don't know how to say this, but they grind so much. They are the type of team, 18 to 22-year-olds, that are going to wear themselves down in an SEC tournament against 2 number 1 seeds. That's kind of the problem. And so, no, I think this was a huge issue. So I think it was, yeah, if this was a shooting team, if this was a Bruce Pearl team that runs tempo, that went like 12 deep, and Chris Lofton's like, I'm going to shoot it every time I get the ball up the court faster than you, and I got to stay in rhythm, I might have a point with you. Or you might have a point.
Those guys are taking more steps up and down.
Yeah, but it's not the steps, it's the contact. It's the contact that Tennessee embraces in the post. They embrace the contact, the physical, grinded out nature. It's not about the actual running up and down. It's the contact and just the banging. I mean, Dave, you talk about steps. Wide receivers take more steps than defensive linemen in a football game, but the defensive linemen get worn down way more, don't they? Okay. And so, yeah, it's the contact. And so because of the contact, that's the thing I think matters. Now,
what about our comment on Tyler saying winning Saturday got them away from Duke and Cleveland, so it did matter?
Tyler, I'm not believing that. I know the projection was that they were in Cleveland, but I think that they already had them going to Lexington. I think Joe Lunardi's not perfect, and so he gets a couple of things wrong. And let's be honest, Dave, the selection committee doesn't even change seeding for the conference tournament. Do you think they're going to waste their time changing location?
No, and I will tell you this: that Joe Lunardi's not going to pick everything right. So
yeah,
especially locations. I think they would have tried to get Tennessee and Lexington, no matter if they'd have made it to Sunday or not. And really that's been the goal. And I kind of hate it, to be honest with you, because the goal has been to keep it closer to the home team's campus. But I would actually prefer it just be completely random and completely generated by, I would actually do it like this. I would just have, I do the same thing I would a college football playoff. I would have it done by a computer and a formula, and then you would just plug them in. So like you would have the at-larges. Well, I guess no, you would still have the automatic bids and the at-larges together. You would just put them in a computer, formulaic, boom, boom, boom. Wouldn't that be the way to do it instead of
I would
committee?
I would love formulaic. Wait, I believe in a formula. And then here's what I would do. I would have like a committee that could potentially veto something by unanimous consent. If say like two teams are like exactly like two teams have the same record. One team got in, but lost the head-to-head matchup to the other team. Then the committee can veto for like a 12, have like a 12-man committee that can or 12-person committee that can by unanimous consent, they can veto.
Never know. Condoleezza Rice might jump in.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Yeah, but what if like a jury of the peers have the formula? The committee will set the bracket and the seeding, but the formula determines who gets in, and then the committee, by unanimous consent, can disagree with a team that got in over a team that didn't get in if it's unanimous. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. Let me ask you this based off what we saw in the SEC tournament. Why wasn't Dubar on the court instead of Boswell after Lanier and Shaq fouled out? I just think that's where you are with Dubar here. I don't think you can expect him to be much of a contributor in the NCAA tournament.
No, Dubar's not what we all thought he would be. A lot of this is not his fault. He should have redshirted this year. This was his final year of eligibility. He should have taken a redshirt this year, honestly. And
definitely should have. And he had the personal issue, which I'm not going to get into early in the year, but didn't really respond well to that. Goodness knows I'm not going to judge. Loveday, nice enough to throw $5 into the super chat. You know what that means, Loveday? Is that goes Quincy Calhoun's college and Caleb Calhoun's 9-month-old son. So the super chat is Caleb.
Yeah. Why wasn't Dubar on the court instead of Boswell after Shaq and Lanier fouled out? And yeah, that was a good question. But it's like Dave said, it's kind of just where you are with Darlington Dubar right now. I want to be, because of the personal issue he dealt with and then the injury he had at the beginning of the year, I don't think he was ever quite right. And I think it was just too late by the time he was trying to get right. I really wish he had taken a redshirt just for his sake and his own future. And it's kind of sad that he didn't.
Hey, speaking of depth, kudos to Jordan Gainey for stepping up. I mean, when's the last time he's scored nearly 20 points?
He's been hitting double figures a lot recently. He's kind of been on a hot streak. Jordan Gainey this is where the whole, starter or bench player, is a bit Rick Barnes is the only one that really separates them. But I think he actually does play with Jordan Gainey. It doesn't really matter. It's okay, he's not a starter, but he's going to come in and be the primary scorer off the bench. And, there's a reason the NBA has the 6th man of the year award. I mean, a lot of times the 6th man in the NBA is the scoring punch they need when they give their starters a rest. So he could be a starter, but they choose to have him coming off the bench.